All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. My name is Polzin with 9to5 Sports. Going to be getting into the Week 14 ownership leverage report, talking about which players are going to be over-owned and under-owned. Hopefully, you guys will be able to use this information to gain some leverage on the field, like last week we were able to. There's just some strange ownerships going on last week. Some chalky, really, receivers and some less chalky receivers that didn't really make sense. Obviously, Keenan Allen, Christian Watson were the two players that I was really telling you guys to go out of your way to play receiver-wise, because there's a big edge there. We'll get into ownership leverage right now. So if you enjoy the coverage, make sure to give a like and subscribe. Trying to get to 5,000 subscribers before the new year, guys. Let's do that. Need to pick up the pace a little bit here. So I want to get there. It's just a personal goal of mine. So hopefully we can do that. All right, let's get into it. All right, so as always, going through the ownership leverage report, I already have it sorted by the main slate games. Going to go position by position, but first looking at which players are going to be the highest projected owned players on each slate. We're looking at CMC and Dalvin Cook, okay? Apparently, the NFL DFS community is watching the NFL DFS core plays from 9to5 Sports, because those were the two running backs that I said, you know what, we just kind of have to play them this week. I'm kind of joking there, but that's unfortunate that my two favorite running back plays are also the ones that are the highest projected owned, because, we kind of just have to eat that chalk. And then we see CeeDee Lamb popping up there. That's a little bit strange to me. I know he's kind of been a player that I've been going on my way to play a lot, but that's a little strange. Derrick Henry, yes, he gets a great matchup with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and there's kind of just a lack of good plays right now, so that doesn't make sense. Saquon Barkley currently questionable. Guys, if he sits, I don't think he will, but if he were to sit, Gary Brightwell would just be a lock. So just wanted to mention that. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yes, he's going to be chalky. He should be. Probably a little bit too cheap still. Tony Pollard, pretty chalky, and that's interesting to me. I think we'll look into it obviously position by position, but I think this could be just a great spot to gain some leverage on the field potentially. Like, heck, you could go with Zeke, who has just as much likelihood to have a good game, but has a little bit more of a better chance of scoring a touchdown. So that could be a very interesting spot. Okay, let's just look at FanDuel ownership. Kind of the same things. Dalvin Cook, not as high owned. Okay, potential spot to gain some leverage on the field there as well. So interesting stuff there. Let's go position by position. All right, the highest projected owned quarterbacks on the slate for DraftKings are going to be Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Josh Allen. I'll have to see what's going on with his projections and stuff there. That's interesting. Deshaun Watson. Why? All right. Jalen Hurts. That could definitely be a spot to gain some leverage on the field. Patrick Mahomes is cheap. Okay. Ownership wise. And then looking at FanDuel as well, kind of just more of the same. So let's look at leverage rank. Wow. Mike White popping up there. That's kind of surprising. But Patrick Mahomes, yes. Patrick Mahomes, probably the most consistent player on the slate, kind of factoring in the matchup. It wouldn't be shocking to see him go out and have a great game. Yes, he's priced up, but at the same time, you do expect Patrick Mahomes to go out and have a great game. To me, that would be a great leverage rank spot for him. Looking at Mike White, that is very interesting there for Mike White. So we can see just across the board, just kind of a solid play. FanDuel value rank, very good. FanDuel leverage rank, very good as well. As DraftKings, very well. Projected to get around 18 DK points. That's because he's been kind of just a stud. D average doesn't give up that much though, so his matchup isn't the world's best. So just kind of something to monitor there. He does seem a little bit too cheap on DraftKings, especially with all the people that are around him gaining so much more ownership. Now, I will say this is going to be a tough matchup for him. Okay, and obviously the data is just pulling in 2 starts from 2 easy matchups that he was able to take advantage with the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. Gets a little bit more of a difficult matchup, obviously going against Buffalo. But if you look at the players compared around his price point range, and I'll show you guys this, and this is part of what goes into the ownership leverage tool, is that you have Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, all really gaining a lot of ownership, okay? Like, they're all getting some ownership. Now, Trevor Lawrence is banged up. People might not be on him. But the fact that we can get Mike White at 2.1, that could be a nice leverage rank spot. And obviously, it's pulling in the consistency for him, the matchup, the price point. That's why he's pulling in them. Now, personally, I would say Tyler Huntley would be the leverage rank play that I want to get on. You guys probably already know my thoughts for Tyler Huntley on this slate. I think he's going to be a standout play. I think he's going to be someone we want to go out of our way to play. 5.5 is a very cheap price point for a guy that has that rushing upside like him. It's basically, I don't want to say this because people will probably they'll click off the video here, but it's basically getting Lamar Jackson at a much cheaper price tag with less upside. Okay. Against the Steelers, yes, they have been better defensively, but to only have 2.9 DK ownership projection, and same thing with FanDuel, 2.8, that seems too low for a guy that does have rushing upside. Okay. So like great pivots from the chalky Kirk Cousins and the chalky Jared Goff would be Geno Smith, I would say, and especially from Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott. Like Geno Smith, safe play, has a good matchup. I think that's a great spot for Geno Smith. So another spot to gain some ownership leverage on the field. And just kind of wrapping it up here for quarterbacks. I guess, yeah, Sam Darnold, you could match up with Seattle. I don't love it. I wouldn't say do that. Joe Burrow, a highly consistent quarterback. That's why he's always popping up as under-owned. That's part of the equation for ownership leverage is consistency, so he's popping up there. And then just looking at FanDuel, seeing if there's anyone that's popping up there. All the same players pretty much. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into running back. All right, so looking at the highest projected owned running backs on the slate, and it's basically going to be the same for FanDuel. Okay, you got CMC, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, and Tony Pollard. So who would you say out of that group is probably the worst running back? Probably Joe Mixon. And then from there, DeAndre Swift. That seems like kind of strange for him. Okay, I get it, price point wise, has been playing a little bit more, but that's kind of strange to me. That's interesting. So I do think we are going to be able to gain some leverage on the field. So let's look at it. Nick Chubb at 11% projected ownership. Man, F the freaking Browns last week. Like, give Nick Chubb the ball. What are you doing? Like, you don't have to, just because you have Deshaun Watson doesn't mean you have to make him a focal point. Like, don't try to validate your trade. That made me so mad. Okay. But yes, he's a little bit undervalued, but I want to point out, like, no running back is like too under-owned or too high-owned. That's what we're seeing here. Okay. So that's interesting things to me there. Jamal Williams was someone that was popping up last week. Obviously had a touchdown that did help. Yeah, nothing too much here, honestly, running back wise. Everyone seems to be properly owned. Let's go salary by salary to see if we can find any potential spots. So I was very curious for these two. So Tony Pollard is about 4% higher projected than Zeke. And I would say on FanDuel, it makes more sense to be on Zeke, even though he's slightly higher priced. Okay, on FanDuel. That would be a nice spot. Yeah, I'm not sure that DeAndre Swift should be higher projected ownership than Jamal Williams, just given the consistency that Jamal Williams has had. And personally, I'd think I'd rather play Isaiah Pacheco. Now, about the same ownership projection, that's fine with me. From there, I do think Deonta Foreman could be in a good spot. That's not a bad play. I do want to call out Travis Homer. Okay, this is probably going to change. It's looking like he's going to be the RB1 this week for the Seattle Seahawks. He is someone that probably will be chalk, but I think he should be chalk. It's a very cheap price point. So if he's not chalky, yes, please hammer that home. That should be a great spot for you. Now, obviously, just hasn't played that much. Projection isn't that high because he's not officially the starter just yet. Just so you guys know, that's what's going into that. And the consistency rating, that's all that goes into that as well. So looking at receiver now. All right, so the highest projected owned receivers on the slate are going to be CeeDee Lamb, which I think is kind of strange. You guys know I like CeeDee Lamb, but that feels a little strange. I think it's going to be a ground and pound game for the Dallas Cowboys. I think they're getting a little bit primetime bump bias there because I think St. Brown should be higher owned. And yes, I get it. Like, I love CeeDee Lamb. I think you guys know that if you've watched my videos. This isn't anything against CeeDee Lamb. I even said you could argue that he could be the best receiver in the league. Okay, I get it. But to be the highest projected owned receiver on the slate, kind of strange to me. I'd rather go ASB, Justin Jefferson in a great spot, Diggs in a great spot, kind of. Actually, I think this is too high for Diggs. I would say you could pivot from that, especially at that price point. And let's just look at that, especially on FanDuel. Still pretty high owned there right now. Obviously, this stuff changes throughout the week, guys. Yeah, I'd rather go Jamar Chase. I think I'd rather go CD. I'd rather go Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, 5.2. Chris Godwin's one of my favorite receiver plays on the slate. And what's strange is that Christian Kirk, someone that was chalkier last week randomly, I say that because 2 weeks ago wasn't chalky, and like he has had great matchups for like the last 3 weeks and like 6 out of the last 7 weeks, and he hasn't really been chalky except for randomly last week. I would say that because he should have been chalky all those weeks. Like, yes, he's priced up, but at the same time, Christian Kirk could easily do what he did last week and go off again. So that's interesting to me. Garrett Wilson, this is something I expect to get corrected as well. Garrett Wilson in a pretty good matchup against Buffalo. Yes, a lot of people would say, well, they're a good defense. Well, they do give up a lot of points to opposing receivers. Okay, Garrett Wilson did just have a good game against them as well. Man, if that holds up, that is too low. That would be too low. This should be double. I think he should be at least in the double digits. Like Gabe Davis popping up this high, that's very strange. That shouldn't be the case. You would much rather play Garrett Wilson there. Deontay Johnson, you could argue he should be higher owned. I don't see anyone else popping up. DJ Chark Jr. I like a lot. MVS getting some ownership. All right, that's fine. Let's look at ownership leverage for both FanDuel and DraftKings here. All right, and it's actually Justin Jefferson popping up as the most under-owned player, and this goes down to matchup, consistency, and just projection for the week. It makes sense. And then Christian Kirk, kind of same stuff. Okay. Very consistent, on the field a ton. It makes sense. Jamar Chase makes sense as well. Okay. Chris Godwin, I think I would jump on that. And then Garrett Wilson, where's he? He's still popping up there as well. Okay. Very interesting stuff there. Okay. And then FanDuel wise, it'll probably be more of the same. FanDuel wise, yes, more of the same. Amari Cooper, a little bit too low owned on FanDuel than he was on DraftKings. DJ Moore potentially as well. No, that's all right. Let's look at tight end. All right. So the beauty about tight ends is that they're always lower owned than they should be. Like Travis Kelce ranks out as the top leverage rank play on the slate because he's only projected to get 6.2. If you were to compare him to other players around his price point, you would know that he is just as consistent, has just as much upside. The matchup with Denver is not one that you're too worried about. Pat Freiermuth, getting a little bit of high ownership, but I think he's a strong price point play. Greg Dulcich, I love him as a play. I would say his projection should be higher. Mark Andrews, I do like as well. Like, typically speaking, tight end is not a spot to get cute because they are just the correct tight end plays. Maybe you get on TJ Hawkinson a little bit more because he's undervalued. That could be a spot that you're looking at as well. George Kittle, I would say this is very cheap for George Kittle, for a guy that could easily break the slate. I think he's a spectacular GPP play. So I would say that should be higher. And then Daniel Bellinger as well. I want to point out Daniel Bellinger should be a strong safe play. I would say this projection as well is a little bit too low. I would say I would want to bump that up to about 7. Okay, I think he's going to be a strong price point play as well. All right, but that's all I have for you guys for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys got some useful information. Just a reminder, the ownerships do change throughout the day, throughout the weekend, and up until lineup lock. This is the ownership that I saw on Friday afternoon. And honestly, it should change before lineup lock. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, give a like and subscribe. That helps me be able to put out more content for you guys. Be on the lookout for the Week 14 lineup builder on Saturday morning, and then the cash video as well on Saturday afternoon. All right, thanks for watching. As always, let's keep cashing.